Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing, world? Huh. Well, I suppose if you're watching this, then you've probably seen something else that I've already posted, so I'm not going to keep doing the same explanation. Uh, yeah, my commitment to the world. I'm going to study according to the schedule that I shared. So that said, I think I've said this the last two sessions, but I'm going to make this one the short one. So I'm probably going to be making this quite a short one, maybe half an hour or something like that. But we'll see how we go. Um, okay, well, let's. Oh, sorry, I'm just realizing I was not on screen as I was speaking then. But anyway, hopefully you could still hear me when I was saying all of that. And so, yeah, let's go. Hello, hello, hello. Time to. Just gonna get straight into it. Not gonna keep mucking around with explaining what I'm doing. Let's go. Actually, yeah. Damn. Oh, I ruled that out. Okay. So I know I've come across this particular idiom before, but I apparently got them mixed up in my head when I tried to remember which one was which. So there is a very specific idiom around using whether or if. And yeah, I obviously misremembered it because I think off the top of my head, it's something along the lines of whether you're doing a comparison with whether, and if is only for when you're talking about a possible scenario. So like, if this could happen, and whether or not you would something else. So like, whether is for comparisons and if is for possibilities. That's what I thought, but I, I mean, yeah. Let me just read the sentence again, just to make sure that I didn't have that right and still just misread it. So, assuming that the new drug is approved, it will remain to be seen whether it decreases post-traumatic stress disorder in military veterans after it is widely administered. So, I thought that that wouldn't work because it didn't state the other side of the comparison. So what I mean by that is I was expecting it to say something like whether it decreases the stress disorder or not, or has no effect, or worsens it, or whatever, right? Comparing it to something, because I guess you could just take it as an assumption that it's like an obvious sort of inference that you can make, that is that whether it does it or not is going to be the kind of obvious comparison it's making without actually having to state it. But if it decreases, it will remain to be seen if it decreases stress disorder. Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, in a nutshell, my logic was I ruled out the first three because I thought weather wasn't going to work. Evidently, I was wrong about that, but yeah, that's what I did. And then when I looked at D and E, I split them based on, I thought E was closest to the original meaning. So looking at, assuming that the new drug is approved, it will remain to be seen whether it decreases post-traumatic stress disorder in military veterans after it is widely administered. So after it's widely administered is kind of getting at, well, it's been administered, and at some point after that, we will see if there's benefit. Once it is widely administered is saying very specifically, at the moment that it becomes widely administered, that's when we'll be able to tell. And so I thought that D, like I couldn't see any grammatical issues, but I thought it changed the meaning slightly. So that's why out of D and E, E was closer, because it was saying after it's been widely administered, then we'll see if there's been an impact. So yeah, that was why between those two. But yeah. So the interesting thing there is, I think C, of the ones using weather, is the closest to that same logic. So the same way that I split between D and E, that I decided between D and E, that's probably what I would have come to between A and C. Because even though A is the original sentence, after it is widely administered is saying, I think it's kind of in the wrong tense, because it will remain to be seen. So to be seen is kind of, I can't remember exactly the name of that, past participle, seen. So has been would be the parallel construction to be seen. So, but it's also saying that it's once it has been widely administered. So once it has been is still kind of in that same vein of it's not immediately at the point, as opposed to once they widely administer it, which is again at that single point. So yeah, C is parallel, but closest to the original meaning. Anyway, let's see what they say. We see 3 versus 2 standoff of whether against if. This is a yes or no question, not a condition. Okay, so that's what that is. Yes or no, not a condition. So whether is correct and if is incorrect. So they're saying if is used if it's a condition. If this, then this. So if this condition, then this outcome. And then whether is a yes or no question. So comparison is not even really one of the equations. Like whether this happens or not is a yes or no. But if, okay. Yeah, what I had in my mind was completely off base, really. Because you don't even really make a comparison with whether, do you? You don't say, like, yeah, you're basically just comparing a yes or no every time. It's whether or not, it's whether this or that. Okay, so yes or no is whether. if is a condition, if this, then that. Okay, good to know. Our filter leaves us with A through C. Sorry, my first filter is completely off. Oh, jeez. Choice B introduces an ambiguous pronoun they, which seems to indicate that veterans are administering the drug contrary to intended meaning. Just going to go back up and check that once they widely administer it. Yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. I was so zeroed in on, well, I mean, I didn't pick up on that because I didn't look at A, B, and C. That's why. And they is not one of the pronouns used down here. So that's why I didn't pick up on that. But even when I looked back at it, I was focused on the once part. Choices A and C are similar, which is what I said, in the same way that I thought D and E were similar, which conveys the intended meaning. We can see that A is imprecise and C is precise, contrary to the intended meaning. A makes it sound as if we might be wondering whether the new drug will have an effect before it's administered or during its administration. It's just been running. Okay. The administration is meant to be the precondition for the intended effect. The word once and the verb tense has been both do that accurately. Here the present perfect verb has been administered is fitting because we want to convey that the administration occurs right before the effect will or will not be seen. Well, that's in the same kind of vein as what I was talking about. All right. Not a good start this time. That's okay. Questions on screen. Let's go. Alright, that one was a bit better. I think I kind of zeroed in on the appropriate sort of rules a little quicker. So, let's see. Yeah. Alright, let's see. Let's see. So stepping through, So it's a touch over 2 minutes, so I think I'll get quicker and quicker at these with more practice, but yeah. First year sales of the film Bridge on the River Kwai, obtained in 1957 and estimated to be $27 million, made it the largest grossing movie of the year. So we're talking about a movie, how much it earned in its first year, and the fact that it was the largest grossing movie of that year. So, right. So if we're talking about that, let's see if I can look over here. So, no, that doesn't really work. So, I didn't really make any notes about this one, so I didn't actually rule them out. I kind of was doing it in my head. Probably because I was feeling rushed. I glanced over at one point, saw that I was already over a minute, and I hadn't even started ruling anything out yet. So that's probably why I didn't stop to take notes, which, bad habit. I'll fix that. But anyway, I kind of went through them in order, more or less. I ruled out the first one because made it the largest grossing movie. I thought that was wrong. So we've got this yeah, it's kind of, it's there's so much space in between the verb and the subject. First year sales is our subject. So sales. First year is an adjective. Of the film Bridge on the River Kwai is another modifier. It's just describing sales. Obtained in 1957, also describing sales. Estimated to be $27 million, also describing sales. So the core of our sentence is sales made the film the largest grossing movie of the year. So if I was kind of just read that and cut out all these modifiers in the middle, you'd have first year sales made it the largest grossing movie of the year. First year sales of the film made it the largest grossing movie of the year. So if you have this modifier like that, I don't think you can offset these modifiers in the middle in the way that this has. Because now, estimated to be $27 million, that's describing 1957. It's not because of this comma here. I think without that comma, and that's the other thing, it's not parallel. Is it? No. Film Bridge of the River Kwai, obtained in 1957 and estimated to be... I mean, it is parallel, but the comma is a problem. I don't think that comma should be there, because then it's setting it apart, and it shouldn't be. Made it the largest grossing movie of the year. Yeah. So basically, I just think that's a modifier error. This modifier isn't correct. B had been estimated to be $27 million. That just didn't really make sense. Like we're clearly, this is clearly in the past, and if it had been estimated, then that's implying that there's been a new estimation or some updated estimate, in which case that $27 million estimate isn't relevant anymore. So thus making it null will no. If it had been estimated to be that, this is no longer the thing that makes it the largest grossing movie. So yeah, that one didn't work either. It's just for logic, didn't make sense. C were obtained in 1957, were estimated to be $27 million. Making this I thought was an inappropriate pronoun. I think that was the main thing that separated that one for me. Because otherwise, actually, it's almost the same as C. Like D is almost the same as C, but first year sales of the film that were obtained in 1957 were estimated to be $27 million. I mean, it's also a little bit redundant. That were obtained and then were estimated. You don't need were twice. I mean, that's not really a deal breaker in and of itself, but it's also a bit redundant. First year sales of the film obtained in 1957 were estimated to be, which is how this one structures it. I think it could also have been first year sales of the film that were obtained in 1957. Yeah, sales of the film that were obtained in 1957, estimated to be $27 million, set apart by commas, made it the largest grossing movie. Yeah, I think because we have that were obtained, kind of makes this making incorrect, really. Yeah, I mean in that structure anyway. So, but yeah, in this current one, where is redundant. And this, I think, is an ambiguous pronoun, making this, yeah, this doesn't really, I mean, we kind of know logically it could only be referring to the film, but grammatically it's ambiguous. Well, actually, not so much ambiguous. Sorry, that's the wrong word. It's not so much ambiguous. It's the fact that we use the word the film. It's not this film or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, E, same thing, tense issue. Yeah, I'm just gonna speed this up. I'm rambling and I'm not really making a lot of sense. Yeah, basically what it boiled down to was I think with D it was correct because it finished with a participial phrase, which means it now refers to the entire clause before it, and that clause was first year sales of the film Bridge on the River Kwai, obtained in 1957, were estimated to be $27 million. So now, the fact that those sales were estimated to be $27 million, that's what made it the largest grossing movie. Whereas the difference, I think, with the one above it is making this the largest grossing movie, this just doesn't fit. The word this just doesn't fit in the same structure. So, yeah. And estimated to be 27 million. Yeah, I really need to speed this up. In the original sentence, and estimated is set off by commas, but it's not a modifier because it has the conjunction and. Therefore, the phrase can't be an independent clause because it has no grammatical subject. Right. That's the way of saying what I was trying to say. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so it's not a modifier. You can still use a comma in the word and, I think, if it's an independent clause. Yeah, yeah, I think you can if you have a separate subject, because then it's an independent clause, like a separate subject and verb, because that way you can put a comma before the and to sort of emphasize that there's an extra pause, I think. So yeah, so if it had been something along the lines of first year sales of the film Bridge on the River Kwai were obtained in 1957, comma, and subsequent merchandise sales totaled, or like were obtained in the following year, comma, something about the fact that they had merch sales in the following year or whatever else. So because you're saying sales of the film were obtained, subject verb, merchandise was sold, subject verb, they're independent. So that's it. I think that's why you could do that. Anyway, could be wrong on that. Someone correct me, but be nice about it, please. Phrase can't fit in. Grammatical subject and its predicate may not be spliced by a single comma. Such an error is called a comma splice. Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to make a quick note of that. Alrighty. Eliminate A and scan C. Answer choice C has the same problem. C has the same problem. A subject and its predicate may not be spliced by a single comma. So the subject being sales of the film, comma, were estimated to be $27 million. You can't have one comma between a subject and its predicate. The predicate being basically the rest of the sentence, the rest of the core of the sentence. So the part that has the verb and whatever phrases around the verb. So if, going back to what I was saying before, right, sales of the film, in this first sentence, the predicate would be that, made it the largest grossing movie. And then they said that didn't work. Yeah. And C, making this were estimated to be would be the predicate. Sales of the film were estimated to be, but they've only got one comma there. Now, if this was a completely separate modifier set off by commas, by two commas, then you could put the predicate here. I think that's the point. You can't have it after one comma. The other answer choice is insert commas in an attempt to make the 1957 part into a legitimate modifier. Right. So the 1957 part is now a modifier because they're set off by commas. Yeah. Choice B introduces a pronoun with no reference, they, so it's out. I should have picked up on that. I was saying had been was the issue, but They is an ambiguous pronoun. E is not grammatical. Which would have to be preceded by a comma here. Wow, every bit of logic they applied is not what I did at all. So I guess I must have just kind of went with gut feeling and ended up getting there on that one. Not a good sign, really. You don't want to be relying on your gut. Okay. Do one more question, I think. And actually, I'll do one quant question, because I haven't done enough quant on stream in a while. Oh, I will need my clock. And let's go. Hmm. Alright. That one took a bit longer because it took me a while to figure out what I was actually looking for. But once I did, it became easier to figure out. So with this question, I was looking for the fact that the pronouns were, like there's problems with the pronouns. I just didn't, like on first read, it didn't even register that I was looking at, like that I should be looking at those pronouns. But couple of these use they, and we're talking about a dog. And a dog is outside of the underlined section, so it has to be singular. So anytime we're referring to the dog, it has to be a singular pronoun now, which the original didn't do, B doesn't do, and D doesn't do. So yes, the best way to install good habits in a dog is to condition it with short verbal commands and edible rewards before it solidifies bad habits as aging takes effect, or something like that. So A was out for that reason. The best way to install good habits in a dog is if they are conditioned, is if it is conditioned with short verbal blah 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 blah. So that's out. D, if the dog is, the best way to install good habits in a dog, and this even reinforces the dog being singular again, which I actually liked initially for a second, but then realized it probably wasn't necessary. But anyway, the best way to install good habits in a dog is if the dog is conditioned with short verbal commands and edible rewards before they solidify bad habits. So yep, same problem. A, B, and D are all out. So now that I've gotten rid of the first error from the first one and like seen that B and D had the same error, it's between C and E, and then I spent maybe 5-10 seconds splitting the last two, which was in a dog is for it to be conditioned with short verbal commands and edible rewards before aging takes effect and solidifies bad habits. So the only real difference between these two, right, is the best way to install good habits in a dog is for it to be conditioned with, or to have it conditioned with, so C and E are more or less the same. I think E is just a bit clearer. E is, sorry, I was just trying to remember what my logic was. Like, I came to this in the moment and then I couldn't remember when I was staring at it. Yeah, E is just clearer. E gets to the point a little bit faster. For it to be versus to have it. Saying the same thing, fewer words, just a bit clearer, more succinct. So I think C was grammatically fine, but just E is better. And so that's why I chose it. So here there may be more than one problem, but we can fixate on the use of grammatically singular dog early in the sentence and grammatically plural pronoun they later on. Applying the filter eliminates choices A, B, and D. Beautiful. Finding objective defects, we compare how C and E begin. Choice C is idiomatically poor, and moreover, the beginning of the sentence should be parallel with to install, because the linking verb is equates the grammatical subject and predicate of the sentence. So I also noticed the parallelism. I didn't think that was going to just be a deal breaker though, because I noticed that to install good habits in a dog is to condition it. I noticed that was parallel, but I didn't think that is was something that you had to be parallel around. But maybe. Anyway. But other than that, the first part of that was the same as what I said. Idiomatically poor, which is another way of basically saying, well, for it to be conditioned with. Yeah, if you're going to do something, to install habits is to do something. To do something is to blah. The best way to achieve something is to something else. So, yeah, idiomatically it's just a bit better and a bit clearer. Alright, I said I was going to do one. Quant question, didn't I, before I go? So let's have a look. should be interesting. Oh, I need my clock before I read this. All right, let's go. Uh, all right. Well, it took a really long time, but I got the right answer at least. Took me, you can probably tell how long it took me to start thinking about it in the right way. I mean, I started kind of weird there. I'm drawing the circle and going, yeah, what's the other point over here? Like, who ever needed this? What is this accomplishing over here? This is what happens